Welcome to The Creative Influencer, where we discuss all things creative with an emphasis on influencers. The Creative Influencer is hosted by John Pfeiffer. John is an entertainment attorney in Santa Monica, California, who represents influencers and other creatives.
This is episode 13 of the second season of the Creative Influencer podcast. Today we interviewed Taryne Renee. Taryne is the co-host of the Unsolicited Advice podcast with Ashley McDonal. She is also a former YouTuber who quit YouTube after building a sizable following. Although she will tell you she's not a professional, Taryne gives advice on her podcast and in her full-time job. Today, Taryne tells us her perspective on how to be a successful influencer and why she quit YouTube and how she became a podcaster. Stay tuned. I'm joined today by Taryne Renee. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are the co-host of your own podcast, Unsolicited Advice.
Yes.
The other co-host is Ashley McDonal.
Uh-huh.
And she's an influencer.
Yeah.
You were also part of that world for a while.
Yes, I had a short little chapter in it.
And we'll come back to that.
Okay.
So I have been listening to your podcast.
You have?
Yeah. So here are the things I've learned. I've learned that you say you're not qualified to give advice, but it is an advice podcast. I've learned that there is no normal.
Yeah.
And I learned to always pull it to the side.
Oh my God. Yes.
Things that I didn't know before.
That sounds very strange. Yes.
So listen to the podcast and you know what I'm talking about. Okay. So here's some questions I have.
Okay.
What's it like looking into Ashley's eyes?
It's magical. She has very beautiful eyes. And it's funny, we talked about before, but you know, she's my best friend. And so a lot of times when you have that best friend relationship, you don't really sit and stare into each other's eyes often. It's mostly like, you know, you're sitting on a couch watching TV or you're sitting in a car driving somewhere. Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, another question I have is why don't women have beards?
You know, I don't know. And in one way, I'm thankful for that. But in the way we talked about on the podcast about not being able to just change up your appearance drastically, I don't think it's fair. We should have some type of
Well, I was talking about this preparing for the interview, and it was pointed out that you can change your hair. Women can
true.
do that all the time, where guys don't really have that option.
That's true. Like, it's a little more rare or not as common for guys to just like dye their hair a bunch of different colors or, Yeah, I guess that's true.
And then how did man discover which foods are poisonous?
I don't know. I really don't know. I thought when I Googled it, it was going to be this like all these things would come up. But I didn't find any like scholarly article telling me that, which I mean, I guess I need to dig a little more, but...
I heard a comedian talk one time about the bravest man on earth is the first one that tried cow's milk.
Oh, that's true. Ew. Yeah, that's true.
Okay, your podcast also talks about boy troubles. Mm-hmm. And getting over breakups.
Yeah.
And how to ask a girl out on a date.
Yeah.
And you had a couple episodes ago, there was a girl that was moving to Arizona.
Yeah.
To be next to a guy that she hadn't told that she liked.
Yes.
And then you had to give advice on what to do about that.
Yeah.
And I, as the listener, am sitting there thinking, tell her to tell him first.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's what's so cool about it is, you know, honestly, our most common email is about love or having a crush or this guy dumped me, I can't get over it. And so, you know, a lot of times we'll address one story, but we know it's hitting like
tons of
150 that are sitting in our email box. But there are certain situations that we address that is like not very common, or I haven't personally experienced like going to another state for a guy and not telling him how I feel. So it's kind of fun to just give our kind of unbiased opinions. And
there's a lot of embarrassing situations that...
Yes. I love those. Those are my favorite.
The first episode was a guy took his date out to a driving range.
Yep. Yes.
And
she was
I'll
very
let
nervous.
you do that. I don't want to ruin the punchline.
Thank you for making me talk about farts right away on your podcast. She was very nervous and went to swing the club, and something came out that she was not expecting in very close proximity. So, yeah.
But it's fun as somebody that's not in that world to listen to it, because it hadn't been on my consciousness,
Yeah.
And then you hear it. Because you'd also talk about flirting.
Yes.
And I now know never to start a conversation with, "Hey, big boy."
Well, or you never know. It could be, you could go for the surprise factor, I guess, of that. But yeah, but even that flirting, like I've never had to sit and actually define what I thought it was. Like it's just something people don't talk about, I guess, in definition form. So even that was like a fun episode to.
Well, and I was talking to one of my sons about this, and he was like, "So how does one flirt in 2019?
I mean, honestly, it's a lot of it. I think that's why things are so awkward, is because it's shifting to like a non-personal form. Like you have to learn how do you DM someone? How do you like interact with their social media accounts to where they know you're interested, and things like liking one of their really old pictures. Like that's a huge thing where if a guy likes an old picture, you're like, okay, he was like checking up on me. So it's things like that. It's a totally like new thing.
Because I was sitting next to somebody and they were showing me their girlfriend. And they were talking about breaking up. And they were on Instagram, and I liked her photo, and he was just like, he went apoplectic.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, no, that's the worst thing you can do. Every time
I'm showing my mom,
every time I'm showing my mom something, I'm like, put your fingers on the side. Like, don't accidentally tap anything. Yeah.
And how does that play into the post #MeToo?
I think that's just a very, very, very big example of how now that social media is out and people are more aware of the things going on, and people are, before it's like you only went to the news to hear a lot of things that were going on in the world or things, and that's a very select story. But now it's everybody has their own platform and can talk about whatever they want and tell their own story in any way. So I think it's just a way of like, it's faster connections, instant connections on internet. And then you have like the hashtag system where it's like you literally can say "me too," click it, and see thousands of people who
have the same story.
Yeah.
Okay, so I found that I'm jumping around.
Oh, that's fine.
Your word this year is undaunted.
Yes.
How did you pick that word?
So we were actually in Hawaii for New Year's, and Ashley kept talking about her word, and I was like, oh, okay, like I should find a word. But it's very, for a person like me who I think very psychologically, and I try to be very intentional about things, that was a big task. And I was like searching for days like about a word. And so
that word has to be with you for a year.
Yeah. And it has to be something that really resonates, like not just something, like happy, where it's like, okay, well, of course, like I'm trying to be happy. That's like a natural thing. But I think that I've realized in life there's certain things that I don't take a step because I'm afraid of A, B, or C. Failing, looking dumb, what will happen, not knowing the outcome. So I feel like that word encompassed like I don't want to not do things just because of that fear.
And you picked this word before your podcast launched.
Yes.
When did you first start talking about the podcast?
Well, it's kind of, Ashley's been talking about doing a podcast for a very long time. Like, podcast is her thing. I always say, like, I feel like I'm a fake podcaster because, like, I didn't even really listen to a lot of podcasts before this. Now I feel like I'm a fan, and I feel like I've done enough episodes to where I can say, like, oh yeah, I'm a podcaster. But she took me to coffee one day and was talking about her podcast, and I was like, okay, get on with it. Like, just do it. You've been talking about it forever. And then she finally was like, I was wondering if you'd want to do it with me. And I was like, oh, heck yeah. Like, talking with you? Of course.
I can talk.
Yeah, I can talk, as you can tell. So, yeah. So it just kind of, and then from there, it was like, it took a little while. And then by the time it like really started rolling, it was like so fast. Like, we want an episode up by the end of next month and blah, blah, blah. So.
And how did you come up with the concept?
That was definitely a team effort. we were talking about, we both love people. And a lot of times, like when we hang out, I'll be like, oh my gosh, this girl at work told me a story, vice versa. So we kind of talked about what if we, read people's stories or like comment on people's stories. And then I always joke about it, but I really do have a minor in counseling. Like that's what I actually went to school for. And so that's always been a passion of mine is just.
So you are a professional.
I mean, I like to say, she always is like, shut up when I say it, but yeah, I mean, kind of. So that's always been something I'm passionate about. So it's been cool to see that it kind of shifted really fast from just being embarrassing kind of stories to like hitting on some actually really substantial topics. So yeah, that's how it kind of came up. And then we were thinking about names. And then I think I was the one who came up with Unsolicited Advice. And then because of that name, then it kind of kept morphing into like, okay, like let's do advice. Let's do this. So yeah.
What were some of the ideas you threw out that you decided not to do?
I'm trying to we did like, we were saying like more like a girl talk type of thing, like where it's just like, oh, we talk about like our perspectives on things. But one of the things we really ended up settling on is we didn't want to limit our audience. Like we didn't want it to just be like girls. We wanted it to be something that anyone could resonate with. So, that kind of like shifted away really fast, but we actually came up with the concept and name fairly quick. Pretty so
some of the other things I've learned from listening to your podcast.
Yes, I love this.
That you would like to create a word.
I would.
But, and I'm going to come back to that, but you made fun of your brother for coming up with a word.
That's because if you knew his personality and the way he presents stuff, you would understand why. It's like, he's one of those people, by the way, he's like my best friend. I love him. So no shade, but he's one of those people who just has this like quality about him. And especially with me, like he likes to pester me. So when he says certain things like, oh, I made this word, it's like instantly I'm like, you're so dumb. But if it catches on, Goldilocks.
And his word was Goldilocks.
Yeah.
Which means perfect.
It's pretty brilliant, I guess. I'll give him
so
that.
Now what's your word?
I don't know. I still haven't come up with it. I mean, it'd be cool to like fully create a word like from scratch, but yeah, we'll see.
With your own letters and everything.
Yes, just like random letters, random sounds. Yeah.
Okay, back to the actual making of the podcast.
Yes.
So you launched in March of 2019.
Yes.
When you first did it, did you do practice episodes?
No. So actually, I really, and it's funny because I'm very good at just like on the spot ad lib type stuff. Ash struggles with it a little bit more. But I was surprised because I told her, I'm like, Ash, like, I don't really want to plan. Like, I want to just go in there. We have like a few things that are kind of just like markers. Like we try to start with a random thought and something about our week. So we try to come prepared with that. But as far as like just the dialogue that happens in the beginning, when she reads a story, the advice I give, and then, on the flip of that. So we didn't really plan too much. And then the first time we went in, he was like, a lot of people record a first episode and honestly like throw it out because they're like, that was so awkward or whatever, or it might happen down the road. But we've never had to do it. We've never had to restart. We've never had to edit things out. Like I think there's been like 4 times where we were like, hey, like to our producer, like let me restart that. I didn't do justice to that story. So, but it's like restart 10 seconds, not like a whole episode. So we've both been surprised of how fluid it's been. Yeah. It's been really cool.
Yeah. So when you read the question, the other party,
yeah,
the party of the first part, the second part. So Ashley has not, if you're reading a question,
yeah.
Ashley has not heard the answer. And when Ashley reads it, you've not heard.
Not at all.
The question.
The only thing we'll sometimes do, is, if I have 3 stories, I'll say, hey, what type of story is yours? So she'll tell me like, oh, it's embarrassing, it's about dating, or it's a really sad story. So then I try to kind of counter it with
to balance it with a happy, a short.
Yeah, because if we both came with, we want to keep it light to a certain extent. So yeah, or like I have a shorter one, so I'll pick a longer one, like that type of thing. But we have no idea what kind of story it is.
So the email comes into a common email box, if I understand it right.
Yeah. So
how do you keep from the other person seeing from double picking.
Yeah, we have a system. We have 2 folders. So one's Ashley's stories and one's Taryn's stories. So it's kind of funny because like if emails come in, like I'll try to go in right away to try to like get good ones. Because there's been times where I haven't checked till the day before and then I'll go in and I'm like, did you take all the emails? We used to have this many and there's none. So, but now that's not a problem. In the beginning it was, but we have way too many now. It's kind of overwhelming, but it's great. So we snag our stories and put them in our folder so that the other one can't see them.
And how do you pick which one you're going to read? So you're going through, you look at it. How many do you have to read before you find one that kind of is general enough that it could spill over?
Yeah. So sometimes it takes a good amount of time. I try not to pick ones that we've already talked about, those topics. I try to pick ones that I really feel like I can personally give advice on or that I'm confident that I could research and give good advice. Sometimes some of them, it's just like very like simple things that, like I said, I feel like could tie into other things. So, and then there's a lot that I have saved that I'm waiting just for good times or some really, really heavy topics that I would love to maybe even have like a professional come on and kind of address certain things. So yeah, it's a process. It's a process.
How many? Because I was joking to my assistant about this. I was going to write a letter in.
You should.
As an 18-year-old girl. To see if I could get my email right. But it sounds like there's enough duplication that I would have a hard time channeling my inner 18-year-old.
No, but honestly, like we had a story from a guy one time and I was so excited. Like I wish there was more, I love the diversity of the different people. So you should just write in as yourself.
Okay. And do you know the demographics of your audience?
I don't know too many details. That's a good point. I should probably check in on that. But I do, from the people that we get that send us messages on our Instagram or even just in my life where people will come up and say, hey, I listen to your podcast. It's very like all over the place, which is my favorite thing. I hope that continues to grow for sure.
What about your family?
My family are like the biggest fans, especially my brothers, which I wasn't expecting. But yeah, they're so supportive and listen to everything and will text me throughout the week and be like, oh my gosh, this was so funny. Or
are they older brothers or younger brothers?
They're younger. I'm the oldest. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're like the authority figure.
I like to pretend I am, but yes.
What age range, not age range, I'm sorry. What rating range do you try to go to? You try to make a G, PG, R?
We're trying to stick to, honestly, naturally, we're both pretty in the PG-13 range.
Which is, just as an aside, it's interesting what bothers Ashley that you don't have any problem talking about. And what bothers you.
Completely.
That Ashley just freely will talk about.
Completely. We definitely balance each other out in those ways. But my whole thing is I don't want to do something that just in life in general, this is how I try to live my life. I don't want to do anything that's going to make anyone else uncomfortable or is going to offend anyone. So, and knowing the fact that we do have a lot of young listeners, I wanted to make sure that it was something that wasn't going to be a problem. And I feel like there's enough content out there that is inappropriate and rated R. I feel like it's refreshing to have a podcast. Like I wouldn't be concerned if kids listen to our show or if, my boss from my full-time job listens to my show. And I like that we can sit in that and then not have to worry about it.
Yeah. What's the biggest challenge you faced in launching the podcast?
We really didn't face any challenge.
Other than getting Ashley to do it.
Yeah. Other than her finally stepping up to do it. But the feedback has been so positive. Everybody involved has been so supportive and it's felt so natural. And I think that's how we both knew this is something that could go somewhere, So we really haven't had too much of a kickback or.
What has surprised you about the process?
I think how easy it was. And then I think also, the shift from it being just this is going to be a funny thing to actually hearing some of the girls or people we've talked about their stories saying that we actually like changed their life or like impacted them. And that's been like, we always sit back and I'm like, oh my gosh, Ashley, like we're actually like doing something good. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think we expected for it to get there, but it's been so cool.
And you had talked about doing a feedback episode where you would follow up on stories.
Yes.
Have people responded to that and tell you where they're coming?
So I think we're going to try to do the first 10 episodes because I didn't realize how many stories we've actually done. So when I started reaching out to some of our previous people, I was like, oh my gosh, there's too many. So I think we're going to do it kind of in chunks, but I've already gotten all the responses back and I think we're gearing up next week to go in and record that one. And I'm super excited about it. Cause and my brother was actually the one day he was like, did you ever hear back? Like, did that girl open the picture? Like, very specific. He's like, I need to know like what's going on with these people.
It's so voyeuristic in one sense.
Yeah. So it just kind of like rolled together and I'm really excited actually about that.
Because when you first mentioned it on the podcast, I'm thinking, well, how are they going to get a hold of them until like, duh. You have their email address. Yep.
And it was, I had to like search through and find exactly which ones and stuff. I think we'll do a better job now of marking. But yeah, it's been fun hearing.
What has been your most popular episode? Do you look at the download figures?
I am horrible at that stuff. I do know our last episode, Alone and Hungry, that one, it did hit the charts for the health category of top episodes, which is hard to get an episode up there. Right. So I don't know if that means that's our top one. That's something I should probably research. But yeah.
When you finish an episode, can you predict whether it's going to be successful? Do you have a feel?
There's actually... The answer is no, because there's been certain episodes that we've recorded and I was like, that felt so rough. Like I felt like I was dragging. Like I don't think I said what I wanted to say. And then when they send it back and I do like the final review, I'm like, oh my gosh, that was so good. So I think it's hard to tell because, I'm really hard on myself. So sometimes I'll leave being like, oh, that was horrible. But there are certain episodes it feels good when you leave, but it's hard to like.
And before you post it, do you listen to it all the way through?
Yes. So I try to go through the whole episode for a few reasons. One, to make sure that there wasn't anything in there that we wanted to take out. Two, I try to mark all of the things we mentioned so that I know what to post on our social medias. So if I said, oh, there was this, like the last episode. Oh, yeah, I have a hard time doing eye drops. There's this one video that proves it. So I marked in my notes, fine eye drop video. So that way when that day came, we were posting all this stuff on social media.
Who's in charge of posting on social? Is it you or
both
Ashley?
Of us.
Both of you?
Yeah, both of us. She is, that's like her gift. So there's times where she'll just run with
Imagine
it.
that.
Yeah. But I also post a lot and we both have access to everything. It's a very like 50-50 partnership.
And your Instagram account is?
Oh my gosh. I always forget which one's flipped.
I can help you out.
Unsolicited Advice Pod.
Yes.
At
Unsolicited Advice Pod.
It's because our email is actually Advice Unsolicited Pod because it was hard to track down what we could use. So,
you had mentioned that you was words of my life. You were recognized at a drive-through at Starbucks.
Yes.
And somebody said, "Do you have a podcast?"
Yes.
Now, was it because of your voice or was it because they saw you?
I'm assuming visually because I wasn't talking to her directly. I think just with social media, like even our podcast social media always has like our faces up and whatever. And she could have been like a previous, from like when I was doing YouTuber from Ashley and Alicia, but she specifically said, "Do you have a podcast?" So
How was that? How was that moment?
Oh my gosh, I freaked out. She was probably like, "Oh wow," like calm down, because I was like, "Oh my god, yeah," because I think
you want a selfie with me?
Yeah. I think because I am so passionate about the podcast, and it's something that both me and Ashley are just like, we just truly love it. So I think I got super excited about that. So,
And as I recall, that was before Ashley had ever been recognized for having a podcast.
For the podcast, yeah, specifically. Well, she gets recognized all the time, so it's hard to know.
I want to come back. I want to come back to that one. Yeah. Okay, so you had a brief stint as a YouTuber.
Yes.
What did you learn as an influencer that's carried over to help you on the podcast?
I think the whole social media world is it really is like a business and a science. And I think that when you're outside of it, you view it as, oh, it's just this, like you just post pictures, you just do whatever. And it seems like, oh yeah, like anyone can do that. But like the honest truth is like, no, like most of you will not do it, And I think, I just fell into it kind of because, I was really close with Ashley and Alicia, who are really big YouTubers, and just being friends with them and people seeing me and their stuff and kind of getting to know my personality. I had this random following that grew. And so they talked to me one day and were like, you should do something. Like you're really good at, being on camera. And they know that like I was always like passionate about that age range. Right. So they were like, you should just do it. So it kind of just fell onto me, which doesn't happen to a lot of people. But I think that knowledge I've learned from that has definitely transferred into how we advertise and all that stuff.
Because I checked out your YouTube channel last night, yes. And there are 9 videos.
On my main one, yes.
Yeah, on the main channel. The first was a Q&A. Mm-hmm. Then there was a dating advice according to a 4-year-old.
Yes. That's probably my favorite.
Pretty profound advice.
Right.
And then my favorite was your pickup lines challenge.
Yes. That was probably those 2 were probably like my favorite to film. Yeah.
Do you remember your pickup line that was the most popular?
Yes. It was, hey, are you my appendix? Because I got a funny feeling in my stomach and I'm thinking I should take you out or something like that. Yes.
Yes.
It was pretty brilliant, I will say.
And then you had 48,000 subscribers, which a lot of people would kill to be able to get to that level.
Yeah.
1.5 million views. Mm-hmm. Your Instagram has 74,000 followers. Mm-hmm. And you decided to stop.
Yeah, and I think it seems... Well, if that's something that you're wanting, it seems stupid that I didn't pursue it. But for me, I have a full-time job that I'm passionate about. And I think that I would have had to quit that, fully commit to dedicating to a channel. And I just didn't have that passion driving behind that. And also I wasn't willing to give up what I did. So it just seemed like something that
the balance of it.
Yeah, because I think if you go into things where you're just like, I just want to make money, you're not going to get anywhere. Like, because there's so much work that's behind it. There's so much that goes into it. And so if you're going into it for the wrong reasons, you're not going to be successful.
Well, I think that's from people on the outside that are looking at it. They don't realize it is a full-time job.
Oh my gosh. It's like the most full-time job because, with my friends, it's like I'll go over at night and we're all watching a movie and they're still like editing or on their phone answering emails or researching, and they put so much thought into their art. It really is their art. And I think people just assume like, oh, your life is so easy, your life is so whatever, but they don't understand like that's work. And even those trips, like, yeah, they're enjoyable, but you still have things you need to do and you're up late editing and trying to get your posts up for those trips. And
the first trip, second trip, okay. The 10th trip?
Yeah, you're like, I'm so tired. I just want to be home. Yeah. No, I will, talk till I'm blue in the face about how hard my Ashley and Alicia work. And those are really like the only YouTubers, I some of their like Remy and them, like, right. I love. But I've definitely firsthand witnessed how hard they work. And I, at that time, was not really wanting to do that. Yeah.
Now, there's a couple sites that track YouTubers.
Okay.
You're on them.
I am.
There's one called celebstrendnow.com. And I'll read you this. It says,
oh my gosh.
Taryn Renee is a famous people who is best known as a YouTube star.
Okay.
You are a famous people.
I'm a people.
Okay. And then there's one called Websites. It's called Famous Birthdays.
Okay.
Did you know you're the 42nd most popular person born on July 20th?
Shut up. Wow.
The 42nd most popular.
I'm putting that on my resume.
Because I was thinking about that, and I thought, who's 43rd?
Yeah, I would.
Who's
love to know.
41st?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find that, but I did find, which you probably already know, other people born on your birthday.
Okay.
Carlos Santana.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Alexander the Great.
No way.
Sir Edmund Hillary, the first person to climb Mount Everest.
Yeah.
So you share,
wow.
and you're 42nd most popular.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I feel honored to be on that list.
That was my own little rabbit hole last night.
Yeah, no, that's
how
awesome.
did that happen? But you are a famous people.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So now that when you're hanging around like Ashley, you talked about people coming up to her.
Yeah.
How much of that, from you as an outsider looking at it, how much of it kind of gets in the way of what you're doing at the time, and how much is like the excitement of being recognized?
Yeah. I think that it all depends, because I know like they're very connected and like adore and love their fan base. And I know personally from the times where someone's come up to me, it's kind of cool, because you're like, oh, it's like a face to the people that are watching and commenting your videos. So I know that they really enjoy it. And I've never, of all of the times, and it's been a lot, that people have come up to them. They've never dismissed them. They've never said no. Like, they're always very engaged with them and, saying, I like your shirt. I like your whatever, Yeah. But there have been times where, we're like super tired or coming from something where I feel like it's more of an effort that they have to put on. I think there's also a pressure of, when you're just living your life and you're doing certain things, you're not worried about people like documenting it or So there is certain things like that where it's a little bit like, oh, and I will say in the things I've been tagged in, they don't always capture the most flattering pictures of you. I've definitely grown in my self-confidence, because some of the things I get tagged in, I'm like, dear God, is that what I look like? But so I think it happens often. And of course, just like when you run into someone from like high school in a store, sometimes you're just like, I'm not really in the mood to talk, but I think that they are so genuine that they push through that really well. I
found two. You have a Twitter account.
Yes, I do. I do.
two very funny tweets.
Oh, okay.
My turtle hissed at me and it hurt my feelings.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my turtles. I forgot about them.
I thought that was just so random. And then I legit pulled a muscle in my back while dancing in the shower.
Yeah, that did happen. Yep. I totally remember both of those very clearly.
Okay. I want to transition to you as an individual as opposed to you social media podcast.
Okay. Yeah.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in like Whittier, La Habra area.
So Southern California.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned a day job. What's your day job?
So I actually started a program with a string of preschools that is early intervention and identification of red flags in preschool age kids. Because it's a private school, we don't have the same resources as state schools. So it's a lot of going in and observing kids, meeting with parents, helping connect them with...
When you say red flags, what do you mean?
Like developmental. So, whether it's a child who is not speaking the way they should at their age, or, not able to socially interact appropriately, just certain things like that I'll kind of step in and just help the parents get the process started of, is there something there and what can we do if there is?
How did you develop that?
I was a preschool teacher fairly soon out of high school. And one of my first classes, I had a few kids, 2 that were diagnosed as autistic and one that I was almost positive was. And I just remember feeling like I didn't know what I was doing and I needed help. So I had kind of dropped a hint to the superintendent at that time, like, I think this is something that we need as teachers. Well, then, years later, I nannied for a while. I did a few other things. I actually came back to the company and was approached saying, well, okay, this is your passion. What do you think about just starting it? So,
And you had mentioned it in the podcast, but when you have to approach the parents to talk about that,
Yes.
how is that? How do you start that conversation?
For me, I would rather almost not hit on anything I really want to say to create that relationship. So a lot of times, it's me saying, hey, like, what are things you notice at home? Is there anything you're concerned about? And then I kind of feed off of that. So if they're already aware of certain things, I try to just kind of mirror that with what we're seeing at school.
If you're a parent and you're self-aware at all,
you would think. You would honestly think. But when it's your child, it's your precious little one, that kind of coming to realization that there could be something there is such a
Sally's not
perfect. Such a hard process. So honestly, a lot of our meetings are like very emotional, and sometimes I get yelled at, which I try not to take personal, but yeah.
And how has the ability to give advice or to be able to talk to parents that don't want to hear what you're saying, how is that transferred over to just talking to people that do want to hear what you're saying?
I will say it makes it a lot easier, and it kind of is where I can just sit back and relax. Because when you're seeking help, that's when you're open to hearing it. Those are easy conversations. And so sometimes when I have to go in and kind of push my agenda on a meeting, I'm a little more gentle and try to like kind of tiptoe around it because I don't want to turn them off to where I can't have a productive.
How do you call these meetings? I mean, what do you say to the parents?
Through the directors will just say, hey, like we just wanted to meet. And then we kind of just set it up from there. So luckily I'm kind of like a third party. I just come in to try to help. So I'm not directly calling the parents necessarily.
So I want to shift gears again.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to go 73 questions a la Vogue.
Oh my gosh, okay.
Okay. What's a question you would like to know the answer to?
How people first discovered foods are poisonous. Of course. Yeah.
I mean, that seems so obvious. They died.
Yeah. But like, was there a person? Did they assign people,
I like the idea of assigning criminals.
That's what I thought. That makes the most sense. Like you wouldn't be like, oh, my children, like they're the youngest, right. Just like weed
Here's
them
a bad
out.
guy. Well, yeah. What is your favorite food?
Ooh, honestly, probably German bologna sandwiches.
Because I found out you had salmon for the first time about a month ago.
Yeah.
How do you get through your life?
I don't eat any fish like whatsoever. I will admit that probably most of it is mental, but yeah, so this has been a big hurdle for me. A big hurdle, yeah.
Salmon's actually very good.
Yeah, I'm learning how to cook it and season it and all that stuff. So,
what is your least favorite food?
Pickles.
Really?
Pickles. Yeah, it's really. I almost have like a phobia of them. Yeah, definitely.
So pickles are out for Christmas.
Pickles are not. Yes. No.
Favorite cocktail?
Probably. I mean, I don't enjoy the taste of alcohol, so probably like a fruitier type of drink.
Do you collect anything?
I do. I've recently gotten into Legos, so I've started collecting sets. They are mainly Star Wars. I have one Harry Potter castle set up, but yeah.
And where do you keep these Legos?
There is a shelf in the hallway that's kind of has them all displayed, but I'm running out of room. So I'm going to have to start looking into some cases or something, I guess.
Have you been to Legoland?
You know what? I haven't. And now it's built up so much in my mind. I have to make sure I go with the right people that are going to let me like geek out a little bit.
You got to go because it's actually
really
surprisingly interesting.
Okay. I'm going to do it.
Take a young kid.
Oh, that's a good idea. Okay. Because
there's
that is where
like
I'm at
rides
mentally.
you could, I didn't mean it that way.
No, but it's true. It's true.
If you had 30 minutes a day to do anything you wanted, what would you do?
Probably something in nature. Like whether it's be up on a mountain or sitting by the beach, that's where I feel the most just like
connected,
relaxed, and connected.
What TV channel doesn't exist that should?
TV channel? Oh, that's an interesting one. I feel like maybe like like America's Funniest Home Video, like that type of thing, but more of like that's what it's dedicated to. So, because I personally love watching people fall and things like that. It's a flaw, but maybe something like that, where it's like dedicated to just things that are just going to make you laugh, but like at other people's expense. I guess that makes me sound horrible, but yeah.
Favorite movie?
Okay, so it's embarrassing, but my favorite movie is The Hot Chick. I know. I honestly don't know why. It's the stupidest movie, but I watch it and I'm dying laughing the whole time. I can literally quote the entire thing. I don't know. It's an embarrassing fact, I guess. Yeah.
Last movie that made you cry?
I can't think of movie, but I just finished Stranger Things, and that was probably the hardest I've cried in a long time from watching some type of show or movie.
If you could star in a movie, who would be your co-star?
Oh my gosh, Charlie Hunnam. Charlie Hunnam, for sure. I would arrange that.
What's your guilty pleasure?
Not
salmon.
Definitely not salmon. You know, I think my guilty pleasure is like really putting on a cheesy Netflix show and playing like a stupid game on my phone. Right now I've been playing Merge Dragons, which is literally the stupidest game, but it's like my like when I'm just like wanting to chill routine.
How would you describe your personality?
I would say that I'm one of those people who says the things that everyone thinks, but no one has the guts to say, because basically I'm an embarrassing person who doesn't realize they're embarrassing. Maybe that's a good way.
What's the one talent you wish you had?
Ooh,
it kind of makes you realize that the people on these Vogue interviews had the questions in advance, didn't they?
Jeez, they must have. Or maybe they just cut out all of the pauses. Yeah. I think that I feel like I have like little talents that I never really dedicated to. I really wish that I was like advanced in like dancing or playing an instrument, because it's like I have little taste of that, but I never really did much.
What's your biggest pet peeve?
When people cut in lines. I don't know why. It triggers me really hard. Yeah.
Like at the grocery store?
Yeah, or like Disneyland, when someone goes to cut me, I get really flustered. Other
than Mike Trout and Kobe Bryant, have you ever been starstruck?
Yes. I met Charlie Hunnam, and that was like really, I had a really hard time talking. I was able to say my name, but that was about it. Yeah. Pretty much any celebrity I see, I get starstruck in a way that I'm fascinated by. I want to know what they're really like. That's always what intrigues me.
What piece of entertainment do you wish you could erase from your mind so you could experience it again for the first time?
Wow, that's a cool question. Probably like my first real concert experience.
Which was?
I think it was like my first Coachella, standing on a field at night. And I think it was like, it was either Radiohead or Death Cab. There was like a band that I'd always listened to, and just being there and hearing like in that atmosphere, like and that feeling was just the
vibrations, the speakers.
Magical. I wish I could go back to that.
Okay. Still about you personally, but I'm shifting away from the Vogue style. Okay. How do you consume content? Are you cable, Netflix, YouTube?
Mainly Netflix. Yeah, mainly Netflix. I'm not very good at other. I don't watch a lot of YouTube, which is so funny because, my best friends are like, besides theirs, I don't do much.
What's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram. I think it's visually, it grabs you. So yeah, definitely Instagram.
You talked about comments and you go back and read. Mm-hmm. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you couldn't care less, 10 being they really cut to the bone, where are you on reading comments?
Honestly, I feel like it depends on my mood, but probably closer to like a 3 or a 4.
So comments are pretty easy for you then.
Yeah, I try not to, but I think because I have that ability to be like, to see deeper than what it is. And usually if someone is that miserable that they have to go on my page and say something stupid, I know that like they have deeper problems than me. So I try to just like not think about it.
Do you ever respond?
I try to like them, but I have this really horrible way where I hate being unfair. So I feel like if I respond to one person and I don't respond to all of them, then that's not nice. So I try to at least like all of them, but yeah, sometimes.
What's a question you wish people would stop asking you?
When am I going to get married? Oh my gosh. Yes. 1,000%. That's
And
it.
you have been to a number of weddings in the last 6 months?
I'm pretty much living out the plot of 27 Dresses. Like, I've been in so many weddings. It's ridiculous, but yes.
Do you consider yourself to be an influencer?
I mean, I think at the very, very stripped down definition of it, because there are people that do follow me and do watch my moves, then yes, I would say so. I don't think that I don't know. Sometimes I have a hard time thinking that I am, but I think I am at the base.
But if people are writing in for your advice.
It's very true. Yes, you're right. Yes, I am.
Yes,
I am changing the world. Everyone loves me. Yes.
That's a good way to end
yes,
this.
Yes.
Yeah. Other than the podcast, what's ahead for you?
Honestly, I feel like the podcast is something I'm very much dedicated to. I'm looking, I think that it's going to bring a lot of change and I'm open to it. So I'm not really sure, but I'm also really excited that I don't know, if that makes sense.
And how can people find you on the internet?
Basically everywhere. If you just search Taryne Renee, you'll find me. That's my Twitter, my Instagram. If you want to, get a kick out of my YouTube, Taryne Renee's
I actually recommend them.
They're fun. And then I have Taryne It Up vlogs when I was vlogging for a while. So, yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it for this time. If you enjoyed our podcast, please write a review on iTunes and tell your friends to subscribe. If you have any questions about influencers or suggestions for future episodes, email them to John at Pfeiffer@pfeifferlaw.com. Thank you for listening.